Hit it, DJ!
Cardi B's sophomore album, Am I the Problem, is set to release in the middle of September, and despite the fact that the first album was pretty successful, a lot of people have questions about this next album coming up. A lot of people have felt that the singles for the album so far, other than the two #1 singles, Up and WAP, have been kind of lackluster. With less fan engagement, free falling off the charts, a lot of people feel like Cardi B will not have the same feat that she once had. A lot of people feel like this next album will not have the same impact as the first one, which I do agree with to a certain extent. When you have an album like Invasion of Privacy, that is a once in a lifetime album, right? I mean, the success that we saw with that is very uncommon in the rap field, I should say. And when compared to her other rap female counterparts, there aren't that many who could really compare it to. Now, do I think that the second album is going to be as big, as groundbreaking, as trailblazing as her first one, Invasion of Privacy, was? I don't really think so, but I do think this album will still be incredibly successful. I've been seeing a lot of conversations about Cardi B recently, and I feel like a lot of people make it seem like nobody cares about Cardi B anymore and nobody is interested. And while I do feel like the popularity for Cardi B has gone down a little bit within the past few years, I do feel like there's still a lot of people who do care to listen to the album and who are interested, right? One of the reasons as to why a lot of people feel like this newest album is not going to do that well happened because of the performance of some of the singles on the album. Now, we have 4 singles from the album that are out so far, correct? We have WAP, Up, Imaginary Players, and Outside. Now, I feel like I shouldn't have to say too much about Up and WAP, right? They were incredibly successful, both #1 singles, both took TikTok by storm, took the internet by storm. I remember the day that WAP came out, I was glued to the computer and I was watching it. Me and my mom watched it, everybody in the timeline watched it, everybody was gagged. The celebrity appearances were crazy. Normani, Kendall Jenner, it was an event, right? And I feel like with Up, even though it didn't have that same momentum as WAP, it still had the momentum and ended up going #1 after a few weeks, whereas WAP debuted at #1. And I guess you could say was the song of the summer, right? Right? I feel like that's a pretty fair assessment to say that it was the song of the summer. Now, the next single from the album would have been Outside, which came out earlier this year. Outside was something that I personally liked, and I feel like a lot of people did like. I don't feel like it was anything new for Cardi B. It wasn't a new sound or anything. And I feel like it did decently, peaked in the top 10, debuting at #9. And then after time, it slowly went down and down and down the charts. The rest of the music video was just a standalone single for the album, and I mean, it was okay, right? I feel like it did pretty good despite the fact that it didn't have a music video. And then the single that we have after was Imaginary Player. Now, I feel like Imaginary Players had a lot of scrutiny, right? A lot of people feel like this wasn't the Cardi B that they loved, it wasn't the Cardi B that they wanted to hear in regards to a single. I personally do agree with the fact that I don't think it should have been a single for the album. I think it should have been something that you listen to the album and you find it and you're like, whoa, Cardi B can do something different, and then you just leave it at that, right? I don't feel like it should have been its own single now, because when a song is a single, that means it has its own moment in time separate from the album, right? Yes, it's building up anticipation for the album, but it gets its own music video, it gets its own performances. It's a standalone song where it's supposed to have its own moment, right? And I feel like Imaginary Players wasn't the song to do that with. I feel like if it was a single from the album, I feel like a single should have been like that song that's kind of going viral on TikTok, the new Cardi B one, Bodega Bardi or whatever it's called, something like that. I feel like that one should have been a perfect song. And also, a lot of people do point out that it's been 7 years since we have received another project from Cardi B, right? And of course, she has released songs within those 7 years, like WAP, like Up, a few years after the album came out. And then recently, within the past few years, she had songs like Enough. She had Punteria with Shakira. She's still been working. She's still been in the studio, right? I just feel like we haven't seen too much of it. Again, I'm thinking Punteria, I'm thinking Enough. What's that song she released after Enough? Classy in a cunt. I said when it gets fun. Like what? It's called Like What. I feel like those songs didn't really engage that well with the public, right? Punteria is a song from Shakira's latest album, Las Mujeres Ya No Lloran, which has some incredibly successful singles not only in the US but internationally. So Shakira said she wanted to make an empowering song with an empowering woman, so she called up her girl Cardi B, right? Now, Cardi B does have some experience making music in Spanish or with Hispanic artists, for example, J Balvin, Bad Bunny, Rosalia, and I was pretty anticipated for the song when it came out. And honestly, I did really enjoy the song. It was a Spanish pop banger, and I feel like Cardi B was a really good addition to the song. And even though Shakira had several hits from this album, a lot of people didn't really gravitate towards Punteria, right? So even when you had the Shakira and Cardi B, two names who are pretty big internationally, they only charted in 1 week in the US, and even in Latin America, it wasn't a huge hit. Enough was a single that was released in 2024 last year, and it debuted in the top 10, but after peaking peaking at number, I think 9 or 10, and ended up falling off of the chart slowly, right? Which has been a common trend I've been seeing with Cardi B. When you look at her stats from 2017, from 2018, back when she had the Billboard on lock, back when a portion of the Billboard charts were Cardi B, you notice that these songs aren't just debuting and then falling off the charts, right? They're usually rising. They're usually getting a lot of momentum. You're usually going on the radio and hearing different stations playing different Cardi B songs, right? And you're not getting that anymore. I feel like she was trying to attempt that with releasing a lot of songs last year, and I feel like it didn't really work out. I feel like the times have changed. Maybe people are just so used to Cardi B and her music, they're like, maybe she needs to give us something different, right? I feel like her music has gotten a lot better, but I feel like a lot of people aren't here to see how better it's really gotten. And I really feel like What didn't even have that big of an impact, right? So we have enough, we have Punteria, we have Like What, if they're not really doing that well, right? And I think with the poor performance of songs like What, Enough, Punteria, it really have people wondering, is this album going to do well? Are people going to be interested in it, right? And I think the addition of WAP and Up didn't help Cardi B's case, unfortunately. I feel like when people found out that she was going to be adding those songs onto her album, they were incredibly disappointed in her. Now, for me, I'm not super surprised that WAP is on the album, right? I feel like she kept saying that it was going to be on the album. I remember that she skipped submitting it to the Grammy so it can be for her next album, right? Which she kept her promise on that one, right? And then for Up, I feel like, is there really a good reason as to why Up is even on the album? I can't even defend that one. Maybe there is. Maybe we gotta wait for the album to see, right? And I found it incredibly interesting that those two songs are the last two songs of the album. It makes it look like she just placed those songs on the album to get really big numbers, right? Instead of, integrating them into the album. If it was like Up at number 13 and WAP at number like 22 or something, like make it seem like there's a reason as to why those songs are on the album, I feel like I can defend it a little bit more. I'm not mad at her for wanting to get big numbers for her album, because who doesn't want big numbers for an album, right? I'm just gonna throw away your number ones and not put them on the album. And a game changer that has really changed how this album is going to do, in my opinion, has been this court case, right? I feel like before the court case, people were like, it's gonna like do okay, it might do moderate. But I feel like after that, people have really fell in love with Cardi B. They remember why they like Cardi B. They remember why she's famous, right? She may not be the best rapper, but she is somebody who's incredibly entertaining, somebody who you end up liking over the TV, and you're like, I want this girl to win. That's essentially how she won, right? People saw her love in hip hop. They saw her personality. And I feel like her going to court and her showing through her actions that this cold case was BS made people really fall in love with her, right? Because she is somebody who's funny. And some of the questions that the lawyer was asking was incredibly stupid. Personally, I don't think that lawyer should be working again, because how are you going to take this case and be this bad? It would be so embarrassing. Right at the end of the day, he's still going to get paid. Actually, maybe he's a smart one because he scammed that lady. Cardi B all these stupid questions, but the thing is, he still got paid at the end of the day. Questions like, oh, well, this is a wig. Oh, your hair looked different on this day versus that day. What's going on? That was crazy. But people ended up falling in love with her with that, right? And I think one of the smartest things that Cardi B could have done was capitalize off of her going to court, right? And I think her making the courtroom version of her album was incredibly funny, right? It was incredibly funny, but it was also incredibly smart. A lot of people are already talking about you being in court. A lot of people are talking about you being an album. Why not combine them, combination? And even doing something like that also reminds people of why they fell in love with you, right? You were the girl who didn't take life too seriously. You were the girl who was funny, and you were the girl who wanted to make us dance, right? And the reason as to why certain songs from Cardi B ended up going viral and why they did so well was because it was from Cardi B, and Cardi B is a personality that people just love to see, right? Like, I remember when WAP came out and she went viral for telling girls how to have a clean, cat, right? And she was going viral in all these different languages, and they was translating all this and that, and they were like, oh my god, I love Cardi B, she is so funny. And the comments are in Korean, they're in Portuguese, they're in Japanese. Like, she literally had the whole world laughing and having everybody wanting to have a clean cat, I do think that Cardi B is going to have a pretty good album run. I think through this album, we're going to be able to fall in love with Cardi B again. We're going to remember why we did enjoy Cardi B, and I think she is going to be just fine. I feel like a lot of people forgot that Cardi B knows how to do this, even though she hasn't made an album in a while, right? It's been over 7 years. Cardi B is her at the end of the day, and I feel like her personality really does carry her, right? And I feel like she is going to show through this why we fell in love with her. I think Cardi B is going to be just fine, and what I do not like actually is the Cardi B haters making it seem like nobody cares about Cardi B. People are still tuned into Cardi B. There's a reason as to why she has so many followers. There's a reason as to why she's always in the blog, but people always talk about her, right? Cardi B is a pretty good celebrity. Like, say what you want to say about Cardi B. She may not be the best rapper, she may not be this, she may not be that, but she is a pretty good celebrity who knows how to keep us entertained. I gotta I gotta give her that one, okay? For some reason, I just kind of started thinking about how she threw that pen at that man who asked you that crazy question about paternity in regards to her being pregnant, which low-key, I do not want Cardi B to be pregnant. Girl, please don't be pregnant for once in your life since we've met you, girl. You were always pregnant. You got an album, you got a tour, girl. Please. I really hope she's not pregnant. I feel like she might have said it was a lie or people are lying or saying or something. I just don't want her to be pregnant. Please, please, please. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you come back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And go to TikTok while we still have before it gets banned. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.